Hello and welcome to the next GCSE Hinduism lesson. Today we are looking at Hinduism practices and we're looking specifically at the methods of worship. Now, before we get into today's lesson, we need to understand exactly what it is that we're going to be doing. So we're going to be able to identify key methods of Hindu worship, compare Shaivism and Vaishnavism as sort of two main forms of Hinduism and look at how their worship will be different depending on God it is that they are following. Understand the use of murtis, mantras and bhajans. Try and make sure that we have a concept of some of the core parts of their worship. Hopefully then we'll be able to apply examples and quotations to some exam-style questions at this lesson as well. Before we jump into anything, we need to know, first of all, what worship actually means. Now, worship, also known as puja within Hinduism, is the expression of devotion, also known as bhakti. Now, worship in itself is just a way of showing that devotion, showing that you love being the deity that you are worshipping in that moment. It's not something that's compulsory. It does create a very deep and personal and spiritual connection with your chosen deity. Now, it might be that you go to a particular deity for a particular reason, and it might not be that they are necessarily the one that you're always going to show devotion to. However, if you can show devotion to your personal deity, it usually means your life is going to go about in a slightly better way. This can take place anywhere. Bhakti yoga can happen at home, it can happen in the temples, it can happen outdoors, it can happen in the high streets. No matter where it is that you are, it can take place. There's no expectations of exactly what it is you have to do. However, there are some sort of traditional ways of performing puja, which we will look at in a moment. Here we see the main religious texts, a quotation here that says, "Worship is not an obligation, but an offering of love." This idea that actually when we are performing puja, when we are worshipping, it is just us offering our love to the chosen deity that we are speaking to. Now, puja at home might look slightly different to puja in a temple, but it usually uses a murti, so an image of a deity. Now, that could be a statue, that could be a picture, that could be a painting. Any form of a symbol that represents a particular deity could be used in this moment. During this time, they will often set up some sort of shrine to that deity, which would include lights, form of incense, food, as well as the opportunity to say some prayers. Now, what you'll notice here is that a lot of the things that are included in worship are revolved around the various different senses. It allows yourself to sort of connect with different parts of yourself, as well as allowing a chosen deity to experience those senses. You're going to feel more welcome in your home in that moment. Because one belief that many Hindus have is that the gods and deities will actually their spirit into the murtis, into the physical statues and the pictures that you have of them when you are worshipping them. They are there physically present with you. Now, this is heavily focused on darshan, seeing and being able to see by the divine. This idea that by having a murti there in front of you, you are able to focus specifically on that deity. And then when you are worshipping them at home, it might be that because the deity has decided that, yeah, I really like what is happening in this house, I'm going to go and pay them a visit. And they go and put themselves inside of those murtis. They can then see everything that you are doing. And if you are showing acts of love and kindness, they're going to want to stick around and they're going to see that a lot more. Now, this is something that is often family-led, usually performed at either dawn or dusk, because it prevents you from having to take out huge amounts of time in terms of your day, or to be interrupted with other things. It can give you that time to purely focus on deity and not on the mad rush that can be the middle of the day. However, as I said, puja in a temple could look very, very different. It's usually led by some kind of priest, someone who knows what it is exactly that they are doing. They could do all sorts of different things. They could show arati, which is a light offering of some sort. Bring about parasad, which is a blessed food, which is, again, an offering to the gods, an offering to the deities, because if you're welcoming anyone into your home, you offer them a drink, you offer them food, you offer them something first. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to physically take it. However, metaphysically, they can show that level of appreciation. You know, they can understand the concept that they have offered this a sort of bountiful feast for us. This is somewhere that I'm going to want to be. Again, linking then to that idea of darshan, being able to be seen by the deities when they are existing within the temples, because it is believed that the temples are actually the houses, the homes of the gods. So when you do worship in a temple, you are more likely to experience darshan and actually being seen by your chosen deity. Now, Murtis are treated more like living beings, so they are dressed, they are fed. So this isn't necessarily in a completely physical sense. But if they have statues of a particular god, they are going to make sure that they are clean, make sure that they are dressed with flowers and things like that, sort of covering them. When they say fed, they are going to make sure that they have those parashad, the blessed food surrounding them, having the opportunity to feast themselves. Here we have a quotation from the Bhagavad Gita. I'm going to give you a second to read that through a second, then we'll talk about it in just a moment. This idea then that actually you can't necessarily see a physical being with your present eyes, so therefore you need to have some sort of divine vision when it is that you're trying to interact with these deities, because they aren't necessarily a natural physical being, instead a spiritual one. You need to be able to have that divine vision, and to do that you need to build up a connection with them, and you do that by showing puja, by performing worship, by showing your devotion to that God. So just to quickly check then that we have understood everything that we have looked at so far, here are 4 key terms that I would like you to try and define. You can either write down the definitions or you can speak them out loud, just so that you know that you are confident with them. I'm going to give you a moment to pause the video here, because we're going to go through the answers in 3, 2, and 1. So here are the answers. Puja literally just means worship. Darshan is the concept of seeing and being seen by the divine. The diyas are the lights used in worship. And the murtis then are the images of the deity. That could be a statue, that could be a painting, that could just be a picture. Other worship practices are also worth looking into, because some of the more ritualistic practices are things that make Hinduism stand out as a very separate religion from any of the others. Have the concept of Havan, which is the sacred fire ritual, usually done with mantras. Now, different deities will respect this more. So a god like Shiva, for example, would appreciate Havan significantly more than maybe Ganesh, for example. We also have the concept of bhajan and kirtan, sort of devotional songs and chanting. So when you have particular songs that link to particular beings, the individual songs are called bhajan or kirtans, depending on whether it's a song or a chant. We also have then mantras, which are the sort of repetitive prayers. Here is an example of one. Now you will hear mantra actually being used in a famous film, in Indiana Jones, in the Temple of Doom. You will hear saying these mantras and chanting these mantras over and over and over again. In the Temple of Doom, they are actually worshipping Kali, which is linked to the deity Shiva, as one of consorts of Parvati, who is the consort of Shiva. These are used to sort of focus the mind and show an expression of love to God. However, these are very physical actions as well, and usually things that they have to be thinking really clearly about, because there are lots of processes that have to take place. In terms of Shaivism, they use lots of different things here, and you'll see that I've put a symbol here, and we'll talk about that symbol in just a moment. Now, the worship of Shiva, they're going to be focusing on the fact that he was the god of the destroyer, the ascetic, the sort of the yogi, the one who sort of lived a very simple life. So as a form of worship, many Shivites are going to go and do a very similar sort of thing, living that ascetic lifestyle, living in the same sort of way. However, they do use this lingam symbol, which is the representation of Shiva, which is actually then how particular temples, Kedarnath, are built in shape of this lingam symbol, as a place that is dedicated specifically to Shiva. It is usually the sort of cylindrical shape with a sort of a dome top to it. Now, one of the main practices as a way to worship Shiva when you go to temples like Kedarnath is to sort of show that level of meditation and self-discipline. Absolutely crucial parts of worship when it comes to worshipping Shiva, as well as then showing elements of bhakti yoga as well. Now, here we see, apart from the Shiva prayer, how to Shiva, the benevolent and the destroyer. The benevolent meaning the loving. So it's a bit of a contradiction here. How can something be a destroyer and a lover? Well, the concept of Shiva, as we spoke about in the lessons when we spoke about the Trimurti, spoke about the fact that yes, Shiva is a destroyer, but it's destruction for the purpose of creating something new. We then have to look at Vaishnavism and their form of worship. Now, this is something that is going to be surrounding some of the avatars of Vishnu. So not just Vishnu, but the avatars as well, including Rama and Krishna. This is devotion usually shown through song, dance, and storytelling. For example, the Ramayana, the story of Rama and Sita, and how Rama has to go and save Sita, the 10-headed demon Ravana. In terms of the worship then, this will be songs that will use the names of the deities fairly repetitively as a really joyful thing. If you do have a moment at any point and you're intrigued to see how this actually looks in practice, if you type in on YouTube Bhakti Yoga in public, you will see a whole load of Hare Krishnas going around, dancing around the streets, chanting Hare Krishna, playing musical instruments and singing along, and everyone sort of gets involved with these sorts of things. It's really positive energy to be around. Now, some of the sacred texts that talk about the practicing of worshipping of Vishnu would be things like the Bhagavad Gita. Specifically, you can see conversations between Vishnu and some of the other and other deities as well. Now, this idea is that wherever Krishna is, there is victory. The Bhagavad Gita suggests that if you worship Krishna, this is something that is going to be a huge win in your life. So if you're worshipping and Krishna is present, this is a huge win. So you need to make sure that your worship is perfect, because if Krishna can be there with you, victory will be held. So as a quick comparison then, here is a few sort of differences between Shaivism and Vaishnavism. A few other things in here as well that we need to talk about. Now, the other symbols of Shaivism and the sort of worship that can happen is the use of the trident symbol, and that is because that is one of Shiva's weapons. So for many Shaivites, they might draw the sort of trident symbol on their forehead as a way to show that they are particularly worshipping their particular chosen deity of Shiva. Then to the Vaishnavists, they will draw a V shape on their foreheads, again to sort of symbolize the importance in that they are worshipping Vishnu and the sort of consorts and the other sort of avatars of Vishnu. But because of who Vishnu is, the fact is that you have got these other images that come forward. Things like lotus flower, the conch which Vishnu is seen holding, as well as the flute that is commonly linked to Krishna. These sorts of symbols are very commonly used throughout Hindu worship, especially when it comes to worshipping these particular deities. What we now need to do is look at how we go about answering a 6-mark question. Now, we're going to use the structure of point, evidence, explain, point, explain. Now, you might notice here that there are only 5 main sentences that are going to be written here, but I will talk you through how this is going to get 6 marks. Now, we're going to use these sentence starters here. What you can see in the evidence sentence starter is there's effectively 2 parts to it. This can be seen in, and after that you are going to insert the religious text name, and then where it says that is when you're then going to give the quotation. Now, depending on the exam board, you can get the mark for referencing where the quotation comes from and the quotation itself. It is worthwhile having a look and seeing what the mark schemes are for your particular exam board. If you would like to be able to do that really easily, there is an exam mastery course within the religious studies part of the classroom. Have a go and look at those videos, because they sort of tell you how to gain maximum marks depending on the exam question, depending on the exam board that you belong to. There will be more coming to that section of the classroom soon. So if we were then to apply those sentence starters into an actual answer, our point could be one way Hindus can worship is by creating darshan. Here you can see that I've used the reference of the quotation. I've said it's from the Bhagavad Gita. I've then given the quotation as well. I've explained and I've given a fair amount of detail, probably more so than for an exam board like AQA, but this could be the right sort of amount for Excel or OCR. Again, you're going to see that I repeat that same sentence starter. Another way Hindus worship is, and then I say through Bhakti Yoga, and then I give that explanation as to what that actually means. In doing so, I have been able to achieve 6 different things. 2 points, 2 explains, 1 bit of evidence, plus a reference. Those 6 things will get me, hopefully, 6 marks. Here are some quotations that I thought could be useful for you, especially if you wanted to have an extra bank of quotations you could use in an answer. Now, here are some more sort of extended ones of some that you have already seen. I thought I would give you the full quotations as well, just so you have the opportunity to Pick and choose the bits that you want to specifically use to answer the questions that you wish to answer. Finally, then, we come on to this 12-mark question. Worship at home is better than worshipping in a temple. And this is a for and against table that you might wish to use. If you were to write out an answer, I personally would suggesting that temple worship is more meaningful, so going with the against argument. As a result of this, I would probably use all 3 points and all 3 bits of evidence from the against side of the table, and then maybe only choose 1 or 2 from, more likely 2, from the agree side of the table. If you can choose 2 from one side, 3 from the other, even though it's not a balanced argument, and you come to a conclusion, you should be able to achieve the full 12 marks, because you should have been able to speak about enough. And as long as you have that evaluation in there as well, there's no reason why you shouldn't be successful. Now, that is everything we have time for today. If you wanted to have a go at answering this question and you wanted feedback, feel free to either post your answer in the community page if you wish, or you can private message me and I'll be more than happy to give you some feedback on your answer and let you know how it is that you can improve. Thank you very much, guys, and I will see you in the next one.